Hello, everybody. Welcome to All Caps. I'm Isaac Anderson, author of Song of Bones and the Garden Maze. I'm joined by my host, Tim McKay, the author of The Fall of Salvandrea, and we're joined by a very, very special guest, E.L. Montague, author of Toll of the Magi, To Catch a Witch, Seaward Secrets, The Bastard Prince, and so many other things. Welcome, E.L. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. Here, does it help if you can?
Absolutely. There we go. Yeah, a
That
little higher.
helps. Yeah,
little
there
higher.
they are.
That was a little bit of a flex, but
So many books.
but you know,
How long did it take? So, you have I've heard in other streams you have written everything from years ago. You're just editing things right now. Is that accurate?
So, sort of. I've got 30 years of writing, which I am pulling from, but that's not the reason I write quickly.
Okay.
I write quickly just because I write quickly, but in the last year, I've written several novels and a half a dozen novellas to put out to the world, and then I've got a trunk full of stories that I can pull out and start pulling from. So that's the basic story there. I do have a long history of writing.
Right.
Now, most of the stuff that I have sitting waiting to be published is going to fall into the thriller and a little bit of romance out there too area. So I've got maybe 1 million words sitting around waiting to publish.
Wait, fall out of or fall in? Like romance?
In that category. So I've
Okay.
written a couple of serial killers and some whodunit kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I've got a spy. Ooh, actually, I wrote this year. I've been writing a thriller in the background. That's kind of a thriller romance. It's an assassin who falls in love with his next door neighbor's daughter. Anyway, so I've got a bunch of words written for that, but that'll come under a different name.
Nice.
Different pen name, you mean?
Yeah. So I write all the fantasy and science fiction under E.L. Montague. Yeah. And then if you happen to run into M.L. Edward, that's me too.
Yeah, I feel like I had heard that name. I think I'd heard you mention it maybe once and totally slipped my mind. So yeah, I'm going to have to actually keep my eyes open now.
Yeah, but that's where you'll find serial killers and that kind of stuff. Fair. I haven't decided where horror belongs. I write some of that too.
Yeah.
I think a few of the people around here might point out that I've been known to murder people in my stories.
Yes.
So
we talk about this every time I see you on a stream. So remind us, because I think it was you said your son told you there are always 3 elements in all your stories, or at least the ones I've read. Remind us.
Yeah. So a mobster, a prostitute, and some kind of death, murder, violence are renowned. Actually, Mike Molman's getting the full E.L. Montague treatment right now. I think it was the last week of April that he interviewed Melissa Stone, and they were talking about his peeling head, and I made a crack about Mike of the peeling head, and Mike responded with, "You need to write a story about Mike of the peeling head." That story is about 26,000 words right now. It'll be a novella as a bonus later this summer. And Mike Molman is a bad person.
No surprise there.
In the opening scene, he is having the skin peeled from a woman's back because she didn't deliver.
Wow. Okay. Yep.
Back skin. Mike Molman, why would you do that? I can't believe you did that.
Yeah.
Is this does he have a tattoo of a man with a scythe on the back of his head? That's the really important detail.
No, but he will finish the novel or the novella with a peeling head.
Fair. Too bad. Anyways, yeah, Mike, we are going to get you that tattoo one way or another. So everyone, go subscribe to Bald Balding.
They're only how far are you, Mike? 20, 40, 50? Yeah, I mean they're pretty close. At
they're over 400 for sure.
Mike gets his mower on his scalp, and we'll all get to see it.
I'm excited.
What
That's
I'm really
beautiful.
curious about is Cinnapom has got an earbud in her ear while she's waiting for Joe Abercrombie, Lord Grindark himself, to show
Yeah.
up in some basement, and she's listening to us.
I mean, that's
So-
as big a compliment as you can give, right?
Can you summon Joe Abercrombie with like certain patterns on the ground?
You've read her book.
I haven't actually.
No, she hasn't published it yet. I'm one of the few who get to hear her story, and she's got some good mysticism in there. She's actually a really talented writer.
I believe
doing
it.
great work. We'll all be happy when she works up the courage and polish to put that one out.
Yeah, and the absolute queen of audiobooks. So
She
yeah.
does like herself an audiobook.
Yeah, she's
got a cool job too.
Has something to do with horses, I believe.
As I understand it, she manages horses. I don't know what the right term for somebody who cares for a stable full of horses is. A stable woman. But she takes the horses out and cares for them, and occasionally gets to ride them up into the mountains with her dogs. And so that's how come she gets so much done on audiobooks is she listens to the books while she works. It's kind of awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, quite a life.
She's got the life that we can all be jealous of.
Well, I love horses, but and I don't think I've told her this yet. So I'm wildly allergic to them. Terribly allergic to horses. Within a second of being near one.
That makes sense. I've actually never heard of somebody who's allergic to a horse.
Yeah, I definitely am. Anytime I've gone near one, and when I was tested for allergies, that was one of don't call me a stable. That was something I was told. So yeah, I'm so sorry, Cinnapom, but
I don't understand how allergies work. Like someone's allergic to cats, but just cats, and then dogs, but just dogs. Now I'm hearing horses. Are you allergic to anything else?
Cats and dogs, and I have 2 cats and a dog.
Okay, so you are allergic to hair in the air.
I'm allergic to a lot of things, and I just push through because that's life. But yeah, sad. It is very sad. Given the opportunity, I would push past it and hopefully just acclimatize given enough time. But
if you put your face like into the side of the horse and just breathe deeply for a few minutes, you'll get acclimated.
Horses are dusty, cloudy. I mean, they're like Pigpen. And as soon as you get them clean, they roll around in the dirt. So,
oh yeah.
The one thing I do know about horses is they are mean. They're delightful, handsome, powerful. Joe Abercrombie just walked into the room, so Cinnapom no longer has room for us. Cinna, thank you for showing up for the opening, though.
Her spell
we will
worked.
see you later. See you next time.
Trapped.
I was going to say on the topic of audiobooks, you do all your own, right?
I do.
Yeah,
I do on this little thing right here.
Hey, nice. What kind of mic is that? I'm curious.
It is a fine $29.99 Amazon special.
Nice. Yeah.
And it's the cheapest, like proper microphone that I could muster. And then I've got a little cloth box with soundproofing in it that I stick it in. I say awful things to my family about getting too close to my office. And then I read.
Fair. Yeah, that's the thing. If you have other people in the house while recording, I'm lucky that way. When I talk to other authors who've done their own and they have family and kids around, that's tough. Even my narrator, when I almost had a narrator, you'd get clips back to me, and sometimes you would hear the kids in the background. I'd be like, oh, well, I think we're gonna have to do something.
It's delightful, except for the child talking about Barney. That's terrible.
Probably wouldn't fit in your story environments.
I tell you what, just for you, I will figure out how to work Barney into the story, but it'll probably be completely inappropriate.
Something to look forward to. Maybe in one of your AI futuristic stories.
Oh, I instantly had a vision of a serial killer bashing somebody's brains in while their child's Barney played in the background.
Whew. Well, and that is all you need to know about Neil's books right there in a nutshell.
Speaking of your books, your newest one is Toll of the Magi.
Yep.
It's in the same universe as your To Catch a Witch story.
Yes, and The Bastard Prince. This
awesome
grouping
concept
of 3 And I also showed you a cover for Only Death Lies That Way, which would be a fourth, which we will release in June.
Nice. So far, this series is just novellas, right?
These are novellas, but the thing to remember about this is introductions of characters that play in the central story. The stories of the Temra are a series of novels, and I don't even want to. I don't want to tell you how many novels are in the story, because I'm going to lie to you whatever I say because I'm a pantser. But I have, as an exercise in my head, said how many novels it would take to tell the story, and it was 19. So,
okay, yeah.
I don't want to go there.
These are 19 door stoppers.
They're not small.
Okay.
I've written the first one and decided that I have to split it into two because it's 330,000 words, which would be a real door stopper.
Yeah.
Yeah, squarely in the Mike won't read it category.
Yeah.
But the central story of the Temra is a story of a father and son, where the father is a magi. He's a powerful mage who is watching after his, well, I mean, to be honest, his bastard son. He has an affair with or has a relationship with a young woman while they're still in school, and she gets thrown out of school because she gets pregnant, and he gets sent back to his world because he's from a very powerful family. And then he ends out having to trying to find his son. And when he finally finds his son, it's in the midst of a big war where, and in all these stories, the commoners have risen up and they're trying to overthrow the Magi. And so it's a war between commoners and Magi, or the old way and the new way. And in the context of that, the family that is this father is significant. And King Harold, who is the guy who's trying to overthrow all the Magi, has committed to wipe out all the family, the whole bloodline of the Strums. So Eldred of Strum is the father, and his child is Ghent. But one of the things that happens at the point where the young couple is separated is he casts a spell on his child of protection. He basically pours all of his magic into protecting the child, and accidentally, even though his child is not magical, he has been warded very significantly. And then his mother was also magical, and she is adding to the wards. So at the point that they get reconnected, his son is kind of freakish. He's very big. He's very strong, very hard to harm because anything that comes after him runs into the magical wards that his parents have put onto him. And so half the book or half the series is Harold and his forces chasing him across the known world to destroy them. And then as the boy grows up and becomes very powerful, he then comes back to win back everything that Harold took from him. So we destroy the world twice. The commoners take over and then the Magi take it back. So that's the central story of the stories of the Temra. And you can tell there's lots of potential there because it goes through the whole life of Ghent. And these characters, so Sheena from To Catch a Witch will be one of Eldred's lovers. She's a teenager right now, and she's just getting out in the world, but we're introducing ourselves to someone who will be a significant character. And when she meets Eldred, they will have an affair. And then in The Bastard Prince, we meet Ganga, who is the teacher, and Grieg, who is the boy, and they become a significant player in the sphere of Eldred and Ghent. He becomes one of the generals that works for Ghent. And then in the story of Toll of the Magi, we learn about this kid's family, and basically we're following the different Magi that are having everything taken away from them. And then each one of these people from the novellas becomes a character in the central story.
Gotcha.
So, well, you said you're a pantser, so I'm really curious then if you've written essentially now the first 2 books of the novel series. How has writing these character novellas have you had to go back and do a lot of editing to maybe incorporate any changes you made while pantsing
See,
these?
that's the part that's going to upset the pantsers out there.
Mm,
Is it comes out? I was having this talk with my wife the other day. Is I'm not a plotter. Well, so on the board up here, I have a board that writes out a bunch of scenes for the thriller that I'm writing at the same time. It's all written up there.
mm,
I write it in dry erase because I say all this stuff should happen to get me to this scene that I've got in my head. And then it's in dry erase because every time I start writing, I have to go up and erase everything and write a new list of things that happen.
yeah.
But I've got the sense of where I need to be enough that I've discovered I leave the breadcrumbs that I need when I'm writing.
Mm,
And
Right.
as I get to the next scene, I'm like, oh yeah, I wrote that thing in this story and it did this. And I go and I look at the story. I'm like, there's the breadcrumb. That's the thing that makes this work.
fair.
And so it's like I have an innate, just dumb luck is what it is. I mean, it is stupid luck that I tell stories in a way that I leave myself the tools I need to weave the story. And I've been very fortunate that way. Not much rewriting at all.
I feel like that's a fun way to pants because I'll be writing a chapter and I'll do kind of the same thing. I'll drop a little hint for something later, and then a lot of and then I will go back as I'm writing. I'll read maybe the last 1 or 2 chapters that I wrote, and then write the next chapter. Read the last 1 or 2, write the next chapter, and sometimes then I'll do a full read through of the last maybe 5 to 10. So I'll always I'll end up inevitably picking up on those hints I left myself, and I'll have maybe some notes in a document, and I'll pick up on those hints and flesh them out later. And then every once in a while, I'll have someone who's reading, the book right now. They'll say, "Oh, I see why you did that thing there." And I'm thinking, it was pretty much pantsed, but the crumbs were there. It was maybe a subconscious,
So
dropping yourself.
let me give you an example. Like with Sheena in To Catch a Witch. I think more people have read To Catch a Witch than any of my other stories.
Fair,
But
yeah.
I wrote Sheena knowing that she would play into the bigger story.
Mhm.
And I just wrote somebody that I think would be fun to fall in love with. That's it. I mean, I just said, who would have this set? What experiences could I give a person to make them an interesting love interest when they grew up? And then I wrote that story. And now I know that I have a character who would be fun for either Eldred or Ghent to have a relationship with, because they're both cads. I mean, I just so that we're completely upfront, neither one of these men is a good example of a faithful husband, but they are good fathers. And they come from broken homes, they do terrible things, they're not good people, but they have a very strong sense of familial loyalty to their children. At any rate, I thought I wanted somebody that would make a great character and would put her in the right part of the world. And then where she fits in the timeline, it works out that she'd make a good pairing for Eldred when he comes through.
Fair.
Yeah. By the way, the one thing that I can say I do have for planning is I know I've got a 120-year chart, and the stories fall into the 120 years so that I know kind of where they are and how old they'll be at different times. And that allows me to
keeping timelines in check in a longer series can get very tough very quick.
Yeah. Now the thing that'll really kill people is these guys are not contemporaries. So Sheena didn't happen at the same time as the Bastard Prince or the Toll of the Magi. Sheena is probably 20 years separate from the Bastard Prince, and Toll of the Magi is probably, I don't know, kind of in between those two.
Fair.
Just where it happens. But I'm trying to put people in the right place. And what's really fun is when I do this stuff, I end out with spun off characters. I've actually got a novel that's finished in the first series, of a group of thieves. I can't tell you the title of it because I keep changing the title every time I think about it. But I've written the novel incomplete. So there's a little group that comes out of Havertown in the Kingdom of Bane, who they're thieves and rogues and, a little lower level mob family. And they end up getting forced out of their town and have to go chasing across the world. And they become a significant player, but, I put them in a little place, and they've got a trilogy all of their own. And Sheena, she'll get a trilogy and the trilogy is what lands her in the place to be a lover for Eldred. And I have a novel that I think will be the first of the novels that I'll release that will be a trilogy, and it's all about a girl and her mother in the Highlands. And it's fun. I just have fun doing this stuff. So while I tell you that there's 19 novels for Eldred and Ghent,
it's a much bigger world.
I might have 30 novels for side characters.
Yeah.
How many novels do you have finished right now? They're just waiting.
7 or 8.
Wow. Nope. So what's tell us about the process then for taking one of those drafts, let's call it, and taking that from a rough draft to a published version like these.
So the way that I write, I write compulsively. I know that lots of people, everybody has their method, and not everybody can do it the same. I write every day, and I have written every day for a long time, a long time. And if I am stuck or I can't think of what I want to write, I just start writing another story, which is how I end out with all these different worlds and characters and all the rest of that stuff. I can't not write, but I do get stuck on the thing that I'm writing. So I write something else.
Fair.
And I write across genres because it keeps me fresh. So my basic process is that I write a story that I want to see. And then once I have a story written, I'll set it aside and let it season. It's like you cut a tree, you have to set it out so it dries nice. Yeah. So I'll write a story and I'll set it aside, and then I'll just start on the next story. And in another genre or another world, or maybe I keep writing in that same story and I just let that sit. And the big change for me was last, January, February. I decided I was going to go ahead and start self-publishing instead of surprising an agent someday with, here's the 22 million words that here's 30 years of effort. Let's just publish it. What I thought was I would publish. So I picked out one of my more recent stories and said, I'm going to publish this. We'll call that story 1 and go. The first one that I did was a collection. So it was Heirs to a Flawed Creation.
Yeah.
11 stories from Near Earth. So that's the science fiction stuff. Yeah. So Heirs to a Flawed Creation and Adrift. And that's, I think it's 19 stories. Maybe it's 18 stories. But I just decided I'd release some of my shorter works in science fiction and see how they landed. But what I did was I went about the effort of polishing the stories, and I would polish a story and then write a story and polish a story and write a story. And then go back and put them all together and then read through it and then send it off for readers and write another story. And so, like when I did Heirs to a Flawed Creation, yes, I know you want more heirs. Mike said that this was, it was his favorite book in 2024, 2023, something like that. Which, by the way, hugely honored. And Mike is now a part of that world. I don't write anything that doesn't get stuck. So Mike of the Peeling Head is now canon to the stories of Near Earth.
So good.
But so I did that, and I write them, and then I send them off to betas. And the point at which I am just moving furniture is when I know I'm done. Because sometimes, like you write a story and then you pick it up after a month or 6 months or whenever, and then you look at it and you're like, oh, wow, I am an idiot. This is awful. And I have to rewrite it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I pick up a story and I'm like, that's really not half bad. And then I just start polishing it. I am terrible about leaving out words. So I write and I write quickly. And as a result, I'll leave out he or thee or she or around or them or that. And I'm terrible about it. So if you ever read one of my first drafts, it's somewhat less than perfect because they're just missing words. I spell pretty well. I have good grammar and all the rest of that, but I'll just leave stuff out that's in my head that never got to the keyboard. So I'll have to clean that up. And then I'll send it to betas. So friends get a chance to read, and then I'll hire an editor to go through it. And if I get back from the editor and I make the changes that they tell me I need, and then I read it again, and I can't read something and not want to change something about it. But if the thing I want to change is really, I'm not changing anything, I'm changing a word or changing the color of the walls or that kind of stuff, then I say, okay, it's ready. Now, fortunately, I'm good enough that I have a nice clean draft that I can get to an artist. And when I decide this is the one I'm going to go with, so like for Flawed Creation, I sent Felipe Braccioli a specific story. So this is the one of Cash and Otto. I can't remember what I called that one. Brother Mind. I sent Felipe Brother Mind, and he read it, and then he made some suggestions as that what he wanted to do, and it had that noir feel, and he came up with this. So this would be Kosh, and this is Otto, which is the. Have you guys read that story?
I have not.
You have not? Okay, so in Heirs to a Flawed Creation, I have a kind of like a noir detective cop guy. He's really, it's the whole heavy, rainy Sin City kind of feel. But Kosh's story is that he was shot in the face with a plasma gun when he was trying to save somebody. And the police, kind of RoboCop style, the police gave him over to a cybernetics company, and they gave him a prosthetic that is half his body. So half his mind is an android, and half his organs are an android, and one of his legs and part of his hand. So it's a joining of an android and a human. And they are, he's essentially an automaton because he's slaved to Kosh. Like if they separate, Kosh is dead. Otto can live without Kosh, but Kosh can't live without Otto. And so they make up a police detective who's investigating a murder. And that's that story. So that's how come you see them going up the stairs, because they go up a set of stairs in Koreatown to investigate a murder. So this is Kosh and Otto. And that's the staircase in Koreatown.
Well, so who did you say again was your? Do you use the same cover artist for all of these? That was going to be my next question.
Most of these were done by Felipe Braccioli. Okay. He's a guy that I found on Fiverr. He works out of Brazil. He's a video game artist. So he in the daytime he works for, I think, Electronic Arts maybe. But he does storyboarding for video games, and as a side gig he'll do stuff like this, and he's really cool. And I basically talk out my ideas to him, and I give him a story that he can read and give me something that goes with that. On Adrift in the Next Revolution, that is that's going to be Mama Nina. But that's when she's just a mechanic on a space station. And so that's a picture of her in her space outfit on the side of a space station. It's kind of fun. I enjoy the hell out of the process. So anyway, you asked, how do I write it?
Sure,
I can tell you about these stories too. But basically I get it to a point that I'm happy with it. I'll send a story off to an artist so that they can give me ideas. And fortunately, I write well enough that the artists are usually willing to read a story for me. You know, like, I don't want to tell them what to do. They'll often ask what I want. I'll give them some ideas. But for the guys that I work with regularly, I say, I want you to give me some art for this story. And then they send me back a series of ideas and we start working on it together. And I know they've read my story and they've kind of got my idea. And we go from there. So like on Toll of the Magi down here, this most recent one.
Yeah.
Felipe, the same artist as the one before, did this one. I sent him Toll of the Magi and he read the whole thing. So he did the whole 25,000 words. And he brought me back 4 sketches. He had one with her throwing up the shield. He had one of the family in the cart. He had Roll and his grandmother standing by the lake, or not the lake, the river. And then he had this one. And we went back and forth between standing at the riverbank with the dragon in the water. And we had this one with the spotted cat. And, you know, we just kind of gravitated towards this and they came up with this. And I'm thrilled with it. I love this. This cover's just cool.
All 3 of these in particular to me are just fantastic covers. Every single one, whenever I saw you posting them, they all just catch your eye right away. Just incredible work.
I like visual pop. This does look a little bit like a Bible story. But you know what? I don't care. The spotted cat just really gets me in the bright colors. I love that one. The one above it was done by a guy named Dennis Belinsky. He's out of Germany. Again, I found him on Fiverr. I tried him out a few times. He's actually drawn 2 covers for me that are not published yet. So, you know, Tommy the Unburnt is the current one. I told you I had one about the criminal family that I keep changing the name every time I talk about it. But Unburnt is basically that one, and it's a 128,000 word, nice tight novel.
Fair. Yep. Still a decent one.
And it's great cover. God, it's a great cover. I really can't wait to get it out there. I've already paid for it. I have all the commercial rights and everything, but I have to clean up the novel. But for him, I sent him the whole story of the Bastard Prince. We talked about it. I told him that I thought meeting Fulmir would be a good place to go. And I'm sorry if you're getting some extra noise. My children are outside the door, and without getting up and encouraging them to be somewhere else, we'll get some.
Oh, good. This isn't an audiobook. We're safe.
Yeah. So the big wolf there is Fulmir, who is Father Kell's wolf. Mike, I haven't gotten yours drawn yet, but even if I don't get it on the cover, I'm going to have a portrait done of Mike of Peeling Head.
You need an internal illustration. That can be one
exactly.
of them.
That's exactly what it's going to be used for.
Instead of a map, you have just his head.
Fulmir is think of Odin's dog.
Yeah,
that's Fulmir.
Yeah. Okay.
So the gods, the deities in the world of the Temra are Mother Kaya and Father Kell. He's the creator of all things and the god of war, and she is the his wife and the mother of creation and the god who gave magic to the world. So he created magic, but she's the one that gave it to humans and created the Magi. And her pet is a dragon. So she has Kaya's parrots. When you hear the expression about Kaya's parrots, they're basically wolves with wings and fire. That's Mother Kaya's pet. And then Fulmir is the wolf that belongs to Father Kell, and he has magical meaning to him. And so in the story of the Bastard Prince, they meet Fulmir in the woods, and that's what that's from. And then, of course, in To Catch a Witch, that was done by Vladimir Solnishko. And I really enjoyed working with him. He's in the Ukraine, so there are some challenges working with the Ukraine. But what I wanted from that is a portrait of Sheena. And specifically, I wanted the sense of her suffering. Have any of you read Catch a Witch?
No,
Yes.
not yet.
I have.
So she's carrying the disease, and her magic is expressing itself on her skin. In my world of the Temra, you can tell magi because they have dark fingers. The more you use magic, it stains you, and it starts at your extremities and moves in. And when you're carrying magic, the magic it's black. It blackens your veins, so it's like it's in your blood. And so you end up marbleized or spider-webbed. And so she has dark eyes, and she's bleeding magic in her skin. And so that's how come she picks up that tenor. And if you've seen it, Isaac, so you know what I'm talking about, but she's a pain thief, which means that she can pull disease from a person through her touch. And so she's carrying another man's disease right now and processing it. So
I had a question about To Catch a Witch. Specifically, we were talking with Darren Hanshaw last week just about some of the ins and outs of entering writing competitions like Specific or Sphinx, and it can be tricky with tangential books or standalones that are related because they won't always be accepted as separate. They may. So does Sphinx have a rule like that where it has to be a standalone? It can't be the
so it has to be a first of a series or a standalone. And To Catch a Witch is technically a standalone.
Yeah. So they didn't give you any fuss.
Character ties into a series, but this story is all on its own. You don't have to know anything about the world to read the story.
Yeah.
And the interesting story about this one, Tim Wolf, are you on? Tim Wolf is on. He did it. It's his fault. I was watching I think he was on Bald and Balding. He might have been on Beard of Darkness, but he was on one of the guys out there last summer and talking about entering the Whisper that
this
replaced God, and talking about entering Sphinx and all that you had to do, and that you still had a couple of weeks to enter. And my cocky little self was like, I can write a novella in 2 weeks. And so that's part of the reason it's just a portrait for Sheena, is because I hadn't actually written it yet. I reached out to artists to see if I could find somebody who could turn something around for me quickly. And Vladimir said, he charged me for it, but he said, I can turn one around in a week if you can tell me what you want. So before I had even written the story, I said, I want this girl. And I told him what to imagine. Well, Timothy, that's because the rest of them are blind. As soon as I picked up his story and read it, I was like, God, I am going to embarrass myself. I was so enthusiastic about Timothy's story that Timothy and I didn't know each other from anywhere. He didn't know who I was separate from a cockroach. I mean, he didn't know me at all. And I read it, and then I immediately found him on either Twitter or Discord, and I sent him a note and said, damn, you can write. This is great. And I was really enthusiastic about it, and I knew that I was going to get mopped by him, but I still had the courage to do it. Knocked out the book real quick, got it edited super quick. So To Catch a Witch from idea to published and in the competition was 15 days.
Which is wild. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's all Timothy's fault. So if you guys don't like my unorthodox style, point at him, say he did it.
No, that's pretty great though. Yeah, there's like, it's the thing about the publishing world is even with novellas, the time frame can be a lot when you.
Oh, it can be terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, you know. So every once in a while, it can be nice to just challenge yourself and put something out quickly. I think you get a different sense of your own style. Sometimes rushing through something and then taking time on something else. So that's really cool, and it clearly worked because it got into the finals. So hey.
Yep. I will admit, I was a little surprised it made it that far. I had made some risky choices, as evidenced by the fact that I have gotten my lowest reviews from To Catch a Witch and my highest. So there are some people who read it and were like, "Shame on you! I don't approve of this sort of behavior." And there were others who liked it, and I'm just delighted that I'm starting to find my audience, and hopefully they can, start splitting like cells or find friends or, use my name in vain so that people pick it up. But it was, some people think it's a great story. Some people,
it's very good.
It's a little bit
rough.
rough.
Not be everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah, I'm not a gentle person. I do not write for children. Do not hand this to your child and then blame me because they've been exposed to the things that I write. But like I said, guaranteed to be some violence, probably some death, maybe a little bit of sexuality. In these genres, not very much. In my mind, not very much. That's also eye of the beholder. But the people that I write about are not nice to each other. I could write about Aunt May and the choir, but it's just not going to be that interesting. I'll write you a cozy murder as long as I get to murder somebody. But anyway, so I write pretty hard punching stuff, gritty. I don't back away from things. And I'm not gentle in my language. For things like fantasy, there's not a terrible lot of cursing just because I'm not creative enough to come up with a good Viking curse. But if you read some of the contemporary stuff, there's a few people who use some colorful language, for sure.
Yeah, I think we were actually talking about that before you came on. We were just laughing about that difference between fantasy and whether it's sci-fi or even contemporary, settings. I've seen some authors pull it off where swearing doesn't strike me as too jarring in fantasy, but for the most part it does. It feels like it pulls me out of the world, whereas I don't mind it at all. I don't mind it at all. And I've read some of your work. We've swapped chapters before. I think,
right.
And one of your stories, that was a question I was going to ask. The Gentleman AI story, I believe that made it into one of your.
Yeah, Gentleman's Virtue is in this one.
Yeah. Which I loved. That was a story that hit all the right beats for me within very little space. So I was genuinely impressed. That's it's hard to find. And funny enough, right now I'm judging for much shorter. They're 1,000 words each, writing battle competition. And it's fun. You see the full range of stories that need a lot of work and stories that do what you've done. And that's a skill in and of itself. It can be. It's something I definitely want to.
Gentleman's Virtue, I would encourage you. So I gave you the audiobooks for these, and I didn't send you this book, but I'll happy to give it to you.
Fair.
But there's one in there called The Found Heart. Of all the ones in this one, Found Heart is my favorite one.
Okay. Because I started the audiobook for Toll of the Magi, but now, even as I'm thinking back to that story, it makes me want to go back to your sci-fi because it was very fun.
Yeah, I think Mike likes my sci-fi better than my fantasy because he keeps reading my fantasy and saying, yeah, it's good, but when do I go back to space?
Space is just fun.
Yeah. I ought to let him read my serial killer, and then he won't talk to me anymore.
Oh, it's fun. Yeah, I think that's the nice thing about being in this sphere is we have that range of variety available. Because if I'm writing fantasy, which for the most part I do right now, I need a break. Sometimes it's tough for me to read other people's fantasy at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. Well, there's a good collection of stories here. The thing that's nice about doing collections and shorter works is they're bite size. You
Yeah.
can spend an afternoon or an hour and get down a story and feel good about it. I absolutely have novels written for this. I think probably the first from Near Earth that'll come out is Winds of Mars, which I was super disappointed to learn is not somebody's already used that title. I mean, you can't copyright titles, but I'm going to have to fight that whole battle. And
how old is the other one?
It's pretty old. It's 70s, I think.
Probably fine then.
But you got to remember, 70s is the golden age of science fiction, man.
Yeah.
There is a lot of really good stuff in the 60s and 70s. It's dated a bit, but there's some really good stuff.
You do see a lot of that. And I saw someone else talking about this on Twitter recently. They said, is it okay to have the same, title as someone else? And I mean, if it's a very general phrase honestly, yeah, most of the time I would say maybe try to find something else, but they made a case for searchability as long as it doesn't look like you're copying.
I wouldn't be copying. I can actually tell you, so that the title Winds of Mars comes to me from a very specific truth. So you live in Canada, you got lots of big trees.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed how dead the forest looks next to a clear cut? So like when they go through and they cut, and then you just have the tall, spindly trees and the green is all up top, and it just looks dead right there, because like a normal forest will kind of come down and there'll be trees and all the rest of that. What you may have also noticed is that when you've cut the forest and there is a windstorm, those big old trees will fall down. And that's because the forest requires the rest of the forest to stand. So you'll have trees and they lean against each other in the wind. And even though if you look at a forest from the top, none of the trees touch each other, but in a windstorm, they act as a unit. So it's not that you're blowing on a tree, you're blowing on a forest.
Yeah.
So the Winds of Mars is actually allegorical about the need for other people and androids and stuff like that to relate to each other. And the story
is strong. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, that's literally what it is. And the Winds of Mars is a story of two androids. One gets an ugly life and one gets a good life, just by luck of the draw. Essentially, a shipment of companion droids show up to Mars, and the person who ordered them can't pay for them. So you've got a shipment of a companion droid is an escort. So there's a prostitute and everything I write. But they're a group of androids that are meant to be fully sentient. So they look like people, they dress like people, they operate like people. They are coin operated, but they're left on the dock, and the guy at the dock sells them to whoever will buy them. And one android goes to the local brothel, and then one android goes out to a research facility where they're growing the trees to put oxygen into the air for Mars. And it's run by a family of biologists, and they're releasing wolves into the mountains to create an ecosystem.
Yeah.
And so you have this image of the cut trees where you drive out and it's Mars, but then you get to a certain part and there's big tall trees, and it's like driving into Montana. And so you've got this one android that goes to a brothel in the dirty colony workers town where they're putting up the domes that create the atmosphere on Mars. And then you've got the other one that goes out to the national park version of Mars, and the two different lives that they have. And it turns out that the one that goes to the Brawler on Mars is, and they're both right at the time that actualization happens. So the androids have just hit high enough that they realize that they're self. So they get a sense of who and what they are, and that they're an individual, and that they're not just a machine. And the one in the city discovers that she's being misused and abused, and starts a revolution. She becomes a rebel leader, turns all the androids on their masters, and starts a global cascade of self-awareness, and starts the android revolution. And then the other one that's living with the humans discovers that she is herself, and she's own, and she's treated like a person, and she gets to be a scientist instead of a prostitute, and falls in love with the son of the guy that's there, and she's just a robot. And can you really have a relationship with a robot? And so that's the Winds of Mars. They kind of lay on each other, and then the two running up against each other.
Fair. No, sounds like a riot. That's like an absolute riot.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway,
Isaac, what do you? Oh,
go ahead.
I was going to say, Isaac, what do you think about a little bit of a game? I think Yale's going to like this one.
Talking about killing and death and violence
seems appropriate, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I thought of a little thing we could do here. Here's a game.
Killing your darlings.
Killing your darlings.
I'm pretty good at this.
There are characters in popular culture and literature that did not die that maybe should have died. So I was wondering if I could get your pick your pantser brain.
Sure.
And kind of see how you would kill off these characters here.
Okay. Now there's a chance that I don't know them all, but give it a swing. We'll see.
We've done our best. I think you'll be safe. All right.
Jack Sparrow.
Oh, Jack Sparrow, Captain Jack. Captain Jack will have to die of his own hubris. He will come up with a cockeyed plan that shouldn't work, and he's always winning, but this will be the time that he screws up and meets the end because of his own mistakes. But for him to meet his end, because we all know that Jack Sparrow is actually a softie at heart. He will get a choice to die or let the rest of them live. And even though we all know that his inclination is to be selfish, he will take the selfless route. And then, of course, being a Disney property, he will evade death and come back for another.
Yeah.
Well, of course, that was just the second Pirates movie.
It was indeed the second Pirates movie. But yeah. So Jack Sparrow, he'll come up with something wild, end out in the belly of a crocodile and somehow come out better for it.
I like it. Yeah. So yeah, my immediate thought was his whole thing is being able to get out of just about anything. I like the idea of him essentially doing it to himself because he's a decent guy underneath.
Because we know that he's a softie inside.
Yeah, I love it. I like that. There we go. We solved that. Okay. Character 2.
Frodo Baggins.
Oh, Frodo Baggins. Frodo Baggins is going to be beaten to death by one of the parties because he's so obnoxious. They're going to hold some personal resentment to him. They're like, you are just too goody two shoes. They're going to steal his ring, beat him to death with a leg of lamb, and then put the ring back in his pocket and be glad it's done.
Do you think there's a world in which it would ever be Sam?
Sam killing him?
Oh, yeah. No. Sam is a good, faithful, honest.
Yeah.
Even in the worst possible scenarios, maybe he discovers that Frodo has run off with Mary Brandywine or the little hostess who became his wife. Sam would be, golly gee willikers, shucks, I forgive you both.
Okay, so
not going to be Sam.
Sam.
Yeah.
Sam, you push over.
It might be Gandalf.
Well, Gandalf kind of wanted the ring a little bit. He knew if he had
Gandalf,
it,
I think, would be happy murdering all sorts of people, and he would justify it.
I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, I'm picturing Ian McKellen going on a murder spree, and I'm kind of for it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Gandalf, I think I can go for that.
Gandalf kills him.
Yeah. There we go. Okay. Who's next? There you go. Bran Stark.
Bran
Literally
Stark.
a child.
Oh, so I'm killing Bran Stark?
Yeah.
You're killing Bran Stark. How has Bran die?
Oh, let me see. Bran Stark. How would Bran Stark die? I could see Bran Stark going on a murdering spree, but let me see. I've actually, I need to come up with a crippled murderer. I think that would be interesting because they've got the perfect excuse. I mean, look at me. Turns out that they're a deviant that tears people up. That would be interesting. So how would we kill Bran Stark?
I mean, he's got that wheelchair. That's easy to roll down things.
Oh, that's too easy.
One of those other characters, that little guy, maybe he just goes.
Arya's gonna smother him in his sleep.
Yep. Okay. Fair.
Is Arya his sister?
Yeah, Arya's the murderer. Arya, by the way, is the best badass in that whole story.
Absolutely.
I love the Arya character.
Yeah.
She gets kicked a bunch. She's got a terrible life. She suffers for everything she's got. No deus ex machina for her, as long as you accept that you can take somebody else's face.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like Arya Stark. Totally disappointed that her mother, Lady.
Oh, I forget.
I cannot remember.
Catherine?
Yeah. Maybe Catherine Stark. Anyway,
I think so.
Mom.
Yeah.
We didn't get to see her have her full comeuppance in the movie version. And of course, he's never going to write the rest of the story. So not written, of her getting to be her red mistress pirate lady. Because she's not dead. She is the murderer. She's the red lady. Is that just me? That can't just be me.
I read the first book. And
you haven't read enough of them? Oh, so after the Red Wedding, Lady Stark becomes a really bad person. And they just did not figure out how to put it into the HBO version, and they totally missed out.
Oh, so she wasn't supposed to die there. Yeah, because I haven't read that far, but I've seen the show.
In the books, it looks like she's dead, but she survives. And she becomes a really bad person. She was very interesting to me.
That would have been a fun arc. Absolutely. Yeah. Huh. Okay. Yeah. So
too bad JoJo is never going to finish his book.
So you want to know what I think on that one?
I actually, in my notes
the
here, I was going to ask you.
Conclusion is what his thought is, and he hasn't written it because it's so unloved by the public that he can't figure out how to write out of it. And the truth is, I think HBO is just either running out of steam or money and didn't give him enough air to make this conclusion work, because it was terrible. I mean, season 8 was terrible. But if season 8 had been season 10 and there'd been 2 seasons to kind of get us to that place, it might have worked. And if we were to get George R.R. Martin's book, he might get us to the same place better.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, to me, it was Dany's fall that just happened within the span of 2 or 3 episodes, and it just
I mean, she went from being a growing, worthwhile person to a crazy person.
Yeah, just within 2 seconds.
Yeah, and she never would have nuked Knight's Landing. She wouldn't have done it.
Yeah,
but she did.
Yeah. So no, I think you're right. I think given the space, that could have been fleshed out and could have worked. But yeah, in the span of the series itself, that was such a. Yeah, it had. I liked some of the newer seasons, and people were starting to complain. Excuse me, but yeah, and it hit that point, and that's where it dove off for me. And then I'm still, but Bran becoming king is too much for me. I'll never be okay with that ending. Period. Part of why I'm very happy.
There's a place where Bran could become king.
I
Although
get it.
Jon Snow should have
Look at
been.
him. Look how
Yes.
kingly he looks sitting there.
No, I'm sorry. To me, it was the whole speech being made about making the storyteller into the king. That will never sit well for me. I'm sorry. That just sounds like an author writing
The
themselves.
storyteller is the hand. Bran would have made a great hand.
Yes, you know what? Absolutely. Yeah, he would have been like an advisor, and a protector. That would
And
have
the
made sense.
dirty, underhanded backstabber in the background. Yeah.
Yeah. That would have been great.
The one
that's
who
the thing.
has the mind to go ahead and do the hard things.
Yeah, he had a lot of potential and was overall a fantastic character. So that was just that was another thing where very quickly they seemed to just flip a switch and expected us to go with it. So
Yeah. But I think that had everything to do with the HBO producers and not anything to do with the storytellers.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well,
How did you decide to kill Bran?
Oh, Arya's going to smother him in his sleep.
Smother.
Okay. Yeah.
So not a death by Valerian steel knife. We're talking full on. Yeah.
He's not gonna be pushed off of 3 other things.
She'll push the nursemaid aside and hold his head under water in the bathtub.
There we go.
There's a bunch of ways to kill a cripple.
There we go. There's a good sound bite for later.
There are a bunch of ways to kill a cripple. It's sad.
Terrible. Oh man. All right, there we go. That was our game. Those were our 3 characters.
Oh, those were the 3 characters. We could certainly come up with more.
Oh, I feel like we could do some more. Yeah.
Well, are there any other characters that you believe deserve to die that didn't in popular culture and literature?
This is a tough one. Yeah.
Captain Marvel.
Marvel. With her amazing hair and toys?
Just her head would get so full she'd explode. But the thing about characters is, in all characters, they have to earn the thing that makes them win. And we hate to beware of the Montague Hobbit. Did you? Oh, Mike's commentary on the side there. I'm sorry, I just now was reading those. So the thing about characters is they have to earn whatever they get, good or bad. Nobody wants to see somebody punished unless they've done something worth punishing, and nobody wants to see somebody win unless they've done something winning. It's that age-old story of you got to take everything away from them, tell them that their strengths are a lie, stuff them into a corner, and then in the end they win because they were true. And you want to take an antagonist who gets everything because and they think that they're right, and they do things that everybody knows is awful, but they keep winning, and then in the end they get a public humiliation, and we all get to dance in their guts and call it a good day. It's that thing about storytelling is you gotta earn it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about some of the newer things coming out? Because you brought up Captain Marvel, and I thought, okay, we've got a lot.
So here, I will tell you something. I was really pleasantly surprised by Thunderbolts.
Okay.
I want to see it.
I went to Thunderbolts fully expecting it to be, a wet turd, and it really wasn't. It had every opportunity to be awful.
Sure.
And it was introspective, and they didn't get too hammy. Now, I'm sorry if you hear all the clicking. My dog's sit in my office with me, and she apparently just woke up and shook her head. So I apologize for that.
It's all good.
But they had all the recipe of a cash grab, terrible, yuck, everything else they've been doing with Marvel lately, and they didn't do it. They wrote an introspective, thoughtful story about relevance that didn't try and overdo anybody. They all kind of sucked and couldn't do it all on their own and had to work as a team, and it worked out.
Okay.
Can they carry the French fry the franchise?
French fries.
Can they carry the
Who
French
can carry
fries?
the French fries
Can they
now?
carry the franchise? No, they can't.
I mean,
But it
Yeah.
was a good story.
only Tony Stark could carry the French fries, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, Captain America could.
They are absolutely
but-
setting it up that they're going to try and make a run with the Fantastic Four.
Mhm.
And I'll confess, the trailer that they've done with the Fantastic Four going back to the 60s is interesting. But come on, let's all be real. We have all been burned by the Fantastic Four
Yeah.
quite a few times.
Yeah.
I thought the last trailer looked a little bit boring too. Everything looks just kind of. I like the look of it. I like the vibe, but they haven't said or shown anything that makes me excited.
I was more optimistic with the teasers than I was with the last trailer. I don't know why.
I was told they're using like miniatures and models to film the outer space stuff. That piqued my interest.
Okay.
But I haven't seen anything exciting in the trailers, so I hope it's good.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. They're going to make a run at it. And then if you were to jump over to DC, the new Superman, I don't know.
I'm a bit nervous. Yeah.
It looks like it's got some style.
I love the cast, and so I'm and I James Gunn, right? I mean, he's done some really good things, so I'm willing to give him his fair chance. But there's little things that make me a bit nervous.
I'm just really worried about what they're going to do. I mean, they really could make a mess of it. Now, they could get it right.
No.
The only DC property that even when they do a terrible job, they kind of do a hammy good job is Batman.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
They came up with Arnold Schwarzenegger as, I can't remember,
Dr.
Iceman,
Freeze.
whatever.
Yeah, Dr. Freeze.
Frozone or Fro.
Frozone.
That's the Incredibles.
Frozone is the Incredibles. Which the Incredibles was awesome.
That was amazing.
I came out of the Incredibles going, "Yo, that was great."
Oh yeah, absolute classic.
But Batman he's a great anti-hero. And even though I really wanted to hate the sparkly vampire Batman,
he was good.
Robert Pattinson. I mean, he's sparkly vampire, or Cedric Diggory if you want to go back that far.
He'll always be Cedric to me.
He'll always be Cedric to you. Okay. But I like the moody.
Yeah, I liked it.
Penguin
overall.
version. Yeah, man, they've done a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, Batman. All he has to do is be cool, and Superman just needs to make you feel good.
Yeah.
When the movie's over, you need to feel like, oh, that was good.
Yeah, you got to walk out of the movie going, yeah, that was all right. I think they kind of messed up with Folie à Deux on Joker because they did something cool with Joker, and then they, it was like a Banksy. You buy it and it shreds as it, as soon as the check clears. That's kind of what they did with Folie à Deux, is that they were trying to give us something there, and all they were doing is replacing the Joker.
Yeah.
They were letting go of Joaquin Phoenix so that they could give us somebody that would play the franchise, and I don't know, maybe not. We'll see.
Yeah. Bit of a not quite a non sequitur, but going off of Superman. Have you seen? I'm thinking of this because I feel like it might be up your alley, especially with the dark and gritty. Have you seen Brightburn?
I have not. I totally want to. It really spoke to me as a, evil superhero. Sounds awesome.
Yeah,
it sounds potentially quite terrifying.
Yeah, Brightburn disturbed me.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the whole idea of what happens. So, without absolutely selfishly tying it into my own stories, but a superhero would have the same problem. So, if you've read my stories, I talk about talents. In the Temra, the difference between a magi and a talented person. A magi has the ability to use magic, but they have to learn how to use it. They have to earn it. somebody who is born with a talent they can't use magic. They can just do one thing, but they don't have any control over it. They
Like,
come full
like the leech
full
guy.
blast, right? So the pain thief is an example. She's talented. She's also a witch because you have a variety there. So she's got both kinds of magic. But what would be terrifying is in the case of a pain thief, you can take all of your diseases. What does a mother do with a child that when she suckles, all of a sudden mom feels better and her diseases are gone? And, if dad holds her, his wounds heal. And, that becomes super creepy, super fast. And then what if you have a leech, which is one of the examples Harold collects leeches. They suck the magic out of the people that they come in contact with. So what if a child could kill his mother just because he's hungry? It's time to eat, and then he starts to suck, and he starts sucking all the magic out of her body, and then he kills her. That would be kind of a creepy thing. And so the story of Brightburn, as I understand it, is it's basically a child with superpowers, but none of the mind, but all of the body.
It's essentially Superman if Superman was evil, almost to a T.
He's normal, and then like Superman has his little pod he came in. Brightburn has his pod, then his pod turns on and starts talking to him. And he starts getting these signals like, oh,
yeah. And that's so he's getting external influence. It's like if Superman had a evil Jor-El,
so let's be honest. If you start thinking about science fiction, any society sufficiently advanced to find another species on another planet is going to be sufficiently warlike to overtake them.
Yeah.
Star Trek is bullshit. I mean, it's delightful fun, and we like to think of ourselves as egalitarian, but the Enterprise isn't made of wishes and dreams. It's made of steel and metal and slave labor.
Where's Ro when we need him? We've got Mike, I think, still here, but we need Ro for this.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that shows up, that if they find us, then they already know enough to dominate us. And they're not here because they want to find a play buddy, for next week. They're here because they want whatever we've got on our planet.
Yeah.
I mean, all you have to do is come back to the microcosm. How friendly are we to people that don't have oil or diamonds? Not very. I mean, we basically have come up with our own world is one where everybody who was sufficiently powerful to balance each other plays nice. Everybody who has something that we can take, we take. And everybody who we haven't figured out what we want to steal from them, we let them suffer. They starve and live in, they destroy each other. And why would we think aliens are going to be any different than us?
Have you played around with that in your sci-fi? I know you have a heavy focus on AI.
Yeah. I've also written the alien species, and when you get right down to it, the stories of the androids and humans is the relations of slave master. Is when the slaves free themselves, how do they relate and how do they become their own person and understand themselves as separately, combined with the idea that androids, because they're a networked thing, will also have kind of an alien hive mind to them. And then, of course, I've got the alien species who have resource demands that they're playing with and their own politics and the way that we run into each other. So the concept of the near Earth world is humanity when we are just advanced enough to leave our own solar system, but not very. At the point where androids become self-aware and we have to deal with that, and first contact. So you put first contact, aliens or androids becoming themselves, and us right on the verge of finding the rest of the world. Boom! There you go.
A lot going on.
There you go. There's a lot of story to tell there.
That's awesome.
And of course, all stories are about people.
Yeah.
The whole reason that we tell stories is to explore who and what we are, and that's what it is. So I have fun with it.
When is your next book coming out?
I will do I will do Only Death Lies That Way in June. I'm probably going to, it'll be another novella, and then I'll throw out another novella because Mike made me write a story and it's coming out pretty good. He is such a bad person. I mean, as I write this, every time I write him, I just have this chuckle bad person.
Yeah.
And I've got the story. I'll finish it this week, I think. And then I'll let it sit while I do a final run on Only Death Lies That Way, and I'll do the audiobook. And then I'm going to pick up, why am I choking on the name of it? The Lost Child. Then I'll pick up The Lost Child and clean it up. I have written no books during this interview. But I'll pick up The Lost Child, and I think I'll publish The Lost Child this year.
Fun.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. It's the story of a 14, 15-year-old girl, just not quite old enough to get out on her own, but old enough to think she can, who runs away from home with her too old for her boyfriend to try and go down into the regular world because she can get around, but she's a magi, and her mother's protected her from the ugly parts of the world out there. And so mom has to go chase down her daughter who's run away with her boyfriend and get her back. And
I've read a little of that one. That one's fun.
Yeah. The boyfriend's a real schmuck. And the world is out to get him. And because she leaves the protected valley, she exposes her family to the Inquisition, who discovers that there are magi in the High Valley. And so, and she gets a trilogy, and I really had fun with that story. I think I enjoyed writing the story. I thought I told some relevant things about the relationship of a parent and child. I explored some of what it is to be a young person who's too young and inexperienced to understand that they don't know the world, and somebody who's old and jaded enough who has to fear for their child in that environment. And we get dragons and bears, and we get people that kidnap, and the Inquisition, and it's good fun. And her little brother is a mentally handicapped kid who's kind of a real beast, and it's a good book. I really enjoyed writing it, so I think I'll clean that one up and get that one out this fall. I'll probably throw another novella in there, and if I get an itch, I might put out one of the other books. I don't know, but I'll at least do those. So 2 novellas and a novel, and potentially something else. We'll see.
All right. That's awesome. Such a great pace. Yeah, you're the one putting us all to shame with all of these titles coming out so quickly. It's wild.
Well, so that I don't shame any of you guys, they only sell like 20 a piece. Right now, I'm just getting them out there, and a few people know that I'm out there. I keep hoping that what'll happen is something will catch, and then there'll be a catalog. But the fact of the matter is, I write compulsively. I cannot understate that. I turn out 2,000 words a day every day for years and years and years and years and years.
There, which adds
and
up.
If I get on a roll, I can put out 6,000 or 7,000 in a day.
Yeah,
that'll do it.
Well, you mentioned earlier. I forget what you said, but it stuck with me, and so now it's back. Because you talked about, just having an audience for your books. And so then my question becomes, so what do you do? I think a lot of authors struggle with this. We all do, frankly, especially in the self-published sphere where you have to do it yourself. So how do you approach that then?
Well, I mean, it's obviously,
yeah.
You find a community. Probably the biggest success I've had was with contests. You guys had asked about contests earlier and how that goes. I don't know that I'm the best example for it, because I just said, I can do a contest, read the instructions, followed the map, and turned in a story. And I have to publish by July 15th. I can do that. Publish. Okay, it has to be in this format. Great. Turn it in. And I fully expected when I went into Sphinx that the first person would see her get away from the dragon and be like, there's the bin. You know, I expected somewhere between the local magistrate was abusing her to she had a dragon that she got, or a drake. It was a drake, a landborn, that she got away from. Somewhere between one of those two scenes, somebody with a sensibilities would go, there's the bin, next. But I enjoyed it. And by the way, Isaac, I know you've read the story. That particular scene, I hate people who win unearned. And let's just be real. A teenaged, mildly experienced witch is not getting away from a forest drake without something. And she's not going to pull a spell out of her ass. And she's not going to, we're not going to have the knight in white shining armor ride through and take care of it. She's going to have to get out of this mess on her own. And I ran her up a tree and I was like, you know what? I've been building up to this release for a long time. This is the moment. And that happens to be a natural defense in nature. So that's how that came about. I did not, when I ran her up that tree, I did not know that's what I was going to do. But I got her up the tree and I had a drake pulling down the limbs underneath her. And I thought, that's unappetizing. Yeah. So I mean, that's how I wrote that. And so that's for the contest. I just entered.
Fair.
I just sacked up and said, the worst thing is they're going to tell me I'm awful. Enter. And it opened me to people I'd never met and I never talked to and had different ways of doing things. I had more people read my story than have read any other story that I've been a part of. I got 30, no, it's only 25. Hey, 5 more people, go review my book. But, I got 25 reviews, which is pretty cool because it kind of puts you up in algorithms.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing that I am doing that I can do in a way that other people can't is I do understand that the more product you have in the market, the better you are in the algorithm.
Yeah.
And as most evidenced by the contest, one of the things that happened in the contest, people would read my book and they'd be like, it says it's one of the stories of the Temra. Where are the other stories?
Yeah.
And I hadn't published the novels and I was like, well, I'll do more novellas. And so now when somebody looks at it, there's more stuff to pick up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of what's going on is I'm feeding the beast. And I kind of hope that'll pay off. And I will enter some more contests because that does some variety. The YouTube, the BookTube environment, I try and make an effort to get out and be a part of other podcasts. By the way, if you know podcasts that you haven't seen me on that you think I ought to be on, or anybody watching this that would like to talk to me, please reach out. I'll talk to you. Be a part of your community. We didn't talk about it. I was at my writing group right before I started here. The writing group is a big help. And when you're in the writing group, when you're in a writing group, it's pretty rare that you have everybody doing exactly the same thing, at least at a certain level. I think, as I understand it, some people are kind of at the pickup game level of writing group where big variety of talent and lots of variety of interest. But you get used to the process and then you kind of narrow and move your way until you find your niche group, and you might end up being like Brandon Sanderson and Dan Wells and, whoever else. Everybody in their writing group is a multinational, big selling writer, but the ability to work with other people and share your work and get feedback is helpful to your writing, but it's also helpful to getting your name out there. And then past that, it's, there's a certain amount of budget associated. You start advertising and
Yeah.
doing some of the paid stuff. I'm not 100% convinced I'm good enough yet to spend money that way. I think I'm good enough. I wouldn't publish things if I didn't think I was less than more. If I wasn't good enough to be published, I wouldn't have published myself. I am not as good as I will be tomorrow. I live my life 100% by the job of everybody is for the you of today to wipe the floor with the you of yesterday and expect the you of tomorrow to wipe the floor with you.
Yeah.
So constant improvement.
Yeah.
And I think there will be a point where quality will win out. I don't know, but I do know that reps make a difference.
Yeah.
They do.
One of the advantages of writing a lot, which, by the way, vote for short stories. There's a bunch of you out there trying to slave away at a 200,000 word novel. It takes a while to get that many words stuck together. And a 200,000 word novel is a very big book. It's hard to get people to read something that big. It is easy to write a 10,000 or shorter word story or a 5,000 word story. I said that wrong. It is easy to write 10,000 words.
Yeah.
It is a skill to package a story in less than 10,000 words and make it coherent and it all fit. But that's good exercise.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the advantage of writing short stories, and I don't have them here, but if you go out and look on Amazon and you look up E.L. Montague, you'll see that I'm in a bunch of stuff by the Zombie Pirates. I'm in stuff by Black Ink Fiction. I'm in magazines and stuff like that. That's God's work out there, man. Patronize those indie presses that put out anthologies, participate in anthologies. We know Mike won't read a 200,000 word book. We wish he would write one, but anyway, be a part of the group, write in some of those little indie press opportunities. Nothing makes you feel as good as somebody saying yes to your story. If you can write a short story and get it added in an anthology or put out in a little bulletin or somebody's newsletter or into, a magazine, man, feels great. You could do it quickly. It's great exercise. The more reps you get, the better you get. And something that I'll tell everybody, this is just life in general, but writing specifically, learn to be a finisher.
Yeah. Finishing
is a habit. If you get good at telling a story from beginning to end and polishing it and making it publishable, the next time you do it, it's easy. It was really effing hard to write my first book. And it was really hard to write my second book. And the third book that I wrote was easier. And the fourth book was easy. And now, if anybody said, hey, Ed, could you write a book about? My answer is, yeah, absolutely. Okay, Mike, I will write you a cozy mystery at some point, as long as I can include death, murder, mayhem, and prostitutes. I don't know why I don't actually go looking to write about prostitutes. I don't know. They end out in the story, male and female, and maybe it says something awful about my personality. I think part of it is I want to tell stories about the essential humanity of everybody, including people that are used and abused about society and the dregs and the people who have it rough. And I'm not that interested in the powers of industry, and I'm not that interested in kings and princesses. I'm interested in the guys that get kicked around.
Fair.
King Arthur's cool, but I'm way more interested in Friar Tuck.
Right.
I like that.
So anyway, that's that. You know, I'm a talker. Tim, you're a preacher.
X.
you know what it's like to get a hold of somebody who has things to say. I will talk until you tell me to shut up. So
no, this is great.
You can point me in a direction, or you can ask a question, or if we've gone 90 minutes, if I've used up my welcome, I can say, oh, yeah, we can talk about this too.
Sure.
Just as a time. So for the next novel, this is see that?
Maps,
I do hand-drawn maps for.
Oh, so you did
story.
that?
Yeah.
That's done by you? Okay, yeah. That's another thing.
I've got gobs of them.
Wow.
Do you guys do maps?
No, I don't do my own. I have someone in mind to do one for me.
I have a doodle.
So that one is that's a city map from.
Okay. Yep.
I just gave you the name of it a minute ago.
Thieves?
Unburnt. That's a city map from Unburnt. This is a different city from Unburnt as well. That's the Temra.
Nice. Yep. Wow.
The Keppinger Coast. The place around Ferry. The Eastern Tower of the Sorcerer's.
These are all hand drawn?
Stuff up like the great city of Horkuk.
Huh. Okay. Yep.
And the town of Ferry.
So are you a pantser if you do draw these detailed maps like this?
The maps come as I'm telling the story. Sometimes what'll happen is I'm pantsing, and you can tell that I've got all these papers over here, which is part of my pantsing. Is that I start to tell stories, and then I run into a challenge where I'm trying to come up with spatial relationships. I say, he can get from here to there, and I go, can he? Doesn't quite. Does that really make sense? And so then I'll start thinking about it, and I'll write something down. That one is from The Lost Child, and this is actually that's where most of the stories have happened. In the Temra, in those things. But so I'll get to a point where I have to leave this one out because I'm still playing with that one. But I get to a point where I'm trying to figure out where everything sits in relation to itself, because I just said you could do that, and then in the back of my head I'm like, could you really?
No.
And I spent a lot of time on conference calls and stuff, and I'm a doodler, so while I'm doing day work, I'll doodle and hand out maps.
There. Yeah, I usually have a pretty clear image. I have a very clear image of where my characters are and what the world looks like. But because I pants too, there are elements of the world that I'm always still fleshing out. Really, usually until I get there or I'm close to getting there in the story. But I put a lot of thought into them in advance, but not so much that I'd be comfortable with getting a map of those regions done in advance of having written the story there,
Right.
Oh, that's kind of my as I'm writing the story.
Fair. Yeah.
I'm a pretty heavy plotter. So I'll have something of a map sketched out, but then the character will mention a place. Okay, where's this place now? So my characters will pants as I'm plotting.
Did you do a map for Song of Bones? That was just rich.
Not in the book. Say again?
That was rich for a multi-level dungeon map.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I had that all mapped out. It's not in the book because I.
But you did have one for yourself.
I'm not good at making those. I'm not good at making those, and I didn't want to pay to have one made. So eventually there will be a map, I imagine.
Someday.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Yeah, because that was a fun read, and that was the thing. I didn't feel lost in. But like you said, yeah, it's very much a large dungeon with lots going on, but you don't feel lost while you're reading it. It's a very fun tale.
Good.
Or the extent to which you do feel lost is part of the. Oh, sorry.
Well, it would be a very fun map to.
Yeah.
It when you're reading. So for those of you, has anybody read Song of Bones? Raise your hand.
I mean, I definitely have, and this guy definitely has.
A couple.
It's a pretty cool little story.
Very fun.
And I personally would have, when I read it, especially when I was a younger person, I would have spent gobs of time just going noodling the map, imagining where everybody was and the kind of craziness they got up into. That would have made a good multi-level dungeon map. So,
have you read The
Oh, yeah,
Garden Maze?
I had my charts of where everybody was at different times, and
the garden maze is a little bit different because it's always changing, and you could
yeah,
do a little bit of you could do a pretty interesting picture that included elements, and I kind of think there's one on the wall back there, but but I don't know how you would do a map of the garden maze because it's the ever shifting. What
it
was
would
the
have
name
to
of the
be like
maze in
that
Harry
Pirates of the
Potter that Cedric
Caribbean
Diggory got
map
murdered in?
that would turn.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, the Pirates of the Caribbean.
The next
world.
Garden Maze story will have a map
Okay.
because they're out of the maze. Now they're in the normal world, but it's still a strange world. So the map itself is going to be odd.
Yeah, I agree, Mike.
Yeah, and Mike, it's easy to imagine what I would do in a quaint English town, and I would be the worst granny. Oh man, I'd be tearing up the countryside. I was terribly disappointed when I was in England that I went to quite a few little English towns. Nobody got murdered.
Well, they're
No
they're
poison,
also...
no pushing out of a castle, no hacked with a hoe. Which, by the way, Mike, I know that one of my guilty pleasures is little old lady English mystery stories. I love them. They go down like butter. They're easy to read. They're super fast. There are just a million little old ladies writing these stories. So like you go on Amazon and you can buy box sets of like 12 at a time, and some of them are pretty talented. I've got a whole list of English mystery writers that I'll read whatever they write, and it's always the jealous girlfriend, the lover from high school, the whatever little old lady discovered. It's like Murder, She Wrote, just England style.
Nice.
Yeah, I do like a good mystery there. And then, well, because you said the thrillers you work on are more that romance.
Yeah,
I love that. I love that element. What about sci-fi thriller? I mean, I know a lot of that plays into the tone of some of your sci-fi pieces that I've seen. But have you ever kind of gone full tilt Michael Crichton style? Would that be up your alley?
I'm not as talented as he is. He researches and works hard. I
like a
mostly
genius.
just have fun. So have I thought about it? Sure. Would I love to be able to write Jurassic Park? Oh God, Jurassic Park next timeline. I've got some of them, but that's next. Anyway, but part of what makes them so great is they got just enough of a whiff of reality that it makes everything else kind of hold together. It's really, really cool. I like Michael Crichton. He does some nothing burgers too. I mean, he's kind of like Stephen King. Every now and then he's got a crack moment, but for the most part, he does a good job. I like Michael Crichton.
I wasn't a fan of his Andromeda Strain stories. I really loved Micro.
The original one. The original one was pretty good.
I really like that story, but I can see why someone wouldn't. The writing style was very different.
How old was he when he wrote Andromeda Strain? I mean, that was 1960s.
First ones, I think.
That makes sense.
He did some hospital thrillers, and I think that was the first one where the main character wasn't medical or hospital related.
Huh.
I think
it was a long time ago, and so over 30, 40 years of writing, he's going to get better.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's really cool to see where he starts.
Yeah. So no, I really liked Michael Crichton.
Yeah.
And I like those. I like those historical action adventure stuff. Bernard Cromwell, The Last Kingdom, and all the Vikings. That's good stuff. So Behind the Masks is the 19 books of the Aubrey Matron series that talk about
yes,
the English naval stuff.
Yep, I have them right above me as well.
Yeah. Patrick O'Brien.
Yeah.
I was very disappointed that book 20 didn't actually get written, because 20 was the end of the series and he died. He had the temerity to get you halfway into book 20 and keel over.
Yep. Oh, tragedy. Those are some of my favorite books. I have them all right above me here, right next to Lord of the Rings and Les Mis and Count of Monte Cristo. So those are incredible. That's peak historical fiction right there.
Yeah. And for all of you out there who are just getting a taste of romantasy, I've been reading romantasy since the 80s. If you so Sherilyn Kenyon, I got one right there, or Laurel K. Hamilton, or what's her name? Anyway, all this Sarah J. Maas stuff, they are today's flavor of a long-standing tradition of fantasy characters in a romance setting. That's all that is.
Nothing new under the sun.
Nothing new under the sun. And let's not forget that romances are 60% of fiction, and women are 70% of readers. So nothing wrong with catering.
I can't wait for vampires to get back in vogue.
So in terms of that, so like if you think of that particular run, so romantasy in essence is what we're talking about. It's vampires, werewolves, ghosts and paranormal, monster. They call it monster fuckers, but it's monster hunters, and then it comes back in a circle, and they're never quite at the same time. You get an overlay of werewolves and vampires because there's a nice touch. And then you get ghosts and werewolves, and they kind of follow a cycle, and about every 10, 15 years, they just in the next bunch, and they just happen to be in monsters right now, which is why you're getting all the retellings of the old fairy tales, because that's where you get the wolves and the dragons and the fishy people and things like that.
Fishy people.
Mermaids.
Mermaids, yeah. Or what's the other? The Selkies or
the Selkies. And they just pull up a bunch of historical monsters, turn them into sparkly vampires, run off to some beach, have kids with them, and then throw them off for the vampire when they show back up. So it's
whenever I need my taste of all that, I just watch Cabin in the Woods. Have you seen Cabin in the Woods?
Cabin in the Woods. That's the one with Batiste as the guy who's got it. Or
Chris
Hemsworth.
Knock
at the Cabin.
No, yeah, sorry, different one. Yeah,
Cabin in the Woods is the one where it's like it's the homage to all monster movies.
Yeah. So yeah, four or five friends, go to a cabin in the woods, and it turns out to be this, a spoiler for anyone watching, but it ends up being this trap for them, a ritual sacrifice where they, go into a underground cellar, and they make a choice from what's there without realizing, and that unleashes some horror on them that kills them.
And the people in charge of the ritual are like a very mundane government entity.
Bureaucrats. It's bureaucrats running a horror.
Bureaucrats will kill us all someday.
Yep. Oh,
thanks,
so
Mike. It sounds like we ran them into the ground. Do we still have an audience?
We're getting there. Well, we were joking with someone just the other day, and then separately, someone else asked me in chat. They said, "Okay, we've seen that your show tends to run a bit long. I probably only have an hour to an hour and a half." And I said, "Oh, that is totally okay. No obligation."
Right.
Yeah. So this is no problem. But anyways, yeah. Bureaucrats, though. Let's get back to that really quick, because yes, bureaucrats will kill us all, and that's part. And having worked government for a good stint there, that killed me. I was dying laughing just watching these bureaucrats place bets over Who's
Well,
gonna
I
get
mean, it's
killed by
just
what?
like you get back to Douglas Adams and the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yes.
The
Yep.
bureaucrats have decided that we were ready to be destroyed.
Yep. Oh, so good. So good. That I love that. That as a theme, I feel like we don't get enough of these days, or I just haven't found as many books that play with it as well or as much. So
You get
right.
like you get the realistic version of that in like Alien. Alien is
Okay.
basically
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
For the humor side, I think you mainly have Hitchhikers, and then I guess you have maybe Good
Terry Pratchett.
Omens. Yeah,
Okay.
Pratchett
You
stuff.
really want to start talking like Going Postal and Guards and
I love Going Postal.
all that stuff it's about the regular things in life with a spin of fantastical.
Yeah.
Those are wonderful. Yeah.
All fun stuff.
I need to read more Terry Pratchett.
Yeah, I need to read more. Well, daily, I have my daily window of time. If I can't read earlier in the day, reserved every night, I'm reading, because if you want to improve, you have to be taking in, not just putting out,
That is 100% true. Read or consume something every day.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be hard to balance that out because sometimes you veer more one way than the other. You have to bring yourself back to the middle. But
yeah.
Yeah.
I do lean towards writing because that's something I have to do and I have to execute it, and it requires time and thought, and so it gets a precedence. But yeah.
What's your main window for writing? I should have asked that earlier.
We're using it right now. It's
okay.
So I write every day. I start sometime between 6 and 7, and I write till about 8. If I get a particularly good run, I might write longer, but I write about an hour and a half every day.
Okay, yeah, and like you said, about 2,000 words, and that's a pretty solid writing session.
I write pretty much as fast as I type.
Fair.
Wow.
I now as fast as I type, making corrections. Because I type and I back up and I type and I back up. But once I can get a story spinning in my head, it's just tap, 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 tap.
Fair. Yeah, that's pretty great. I don't know. Nighttime, just I have to wake up early and get my sessions in. Then I find
there's lots of people who do it, and that's because it gives you a nice clean mind to work from. For me, when I start writing, it cleans my mind. So I've got the day all full and everything. And if I can start, all I have to do is start a scene. And then pretty soon I start thinking about the scene and the day kind of slides off and the story starts coming out on the page.
I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah. Well, because writing oftentimes, just for me at least, I don't know. I feel like enough people say this about writing in general, but I find it's a fun laboratory, so to speak, to work through the world around us, and that's the thing. So you bleed into it from your own life and things you've taken in and things you're working through, things you're trying to understand. One of the best ways to understand what's happening around you in your life is to start writing about it.
I heard somewhere that writing teaches you how to think.
Yeah.
And what that means is we can all talk. We can all tell stories. We can all ramble on. We can all watch and read and all the rest of that. And we can memorize facts. But to be able to write, you have to take information, give it order, and make it understandable. And, the first responsibility of a writer is to be clear.
Mm-hmm.
You say something that people understand what you're saying. The second responsibility of a writer is to be a storyteller, to be clear and understood and take people on a journey. Hopefully, as a part of storytelling, you are also entertaining. But you don't have to be entertaining. You have to be clear. And you have to take people on a journey. Hopefully, you're entertaining. And then I don't know if it's a responsibility or it's an outcome or what it is, but you're all creators, so all artists. I'm speaking as a writer because I'm a writer, but people who paint and take pictures and make statues and hell, I don't know, cut hair. But people that are creators put a piece of themselves in the world. And I struggled with that for a while because I write an awful lot of terrible crap. I mean, I don't mean terrible crap in terms of poorly written, but I write about ugly people doing ugly things. And I put that stuff into the world, and I wonder what that says about me. But the other side of it is it helps, you think through all the things that are in the world, and all those kinds of thoughts are better on a piece of paper than they are, at the end of a barrel or the end of a fist or, vile crap thrown into the world. I mean, you tell a story, work it out, help other people see what's in the world. And it takes an awful lot of courage to share a piece of yourself with the world, knowing that they're going to judge you on whatever you have to say.
Yeah. Yep.
That's true. Yeah.
And it's not always easy. Yeah. You have to have a thick skin in this game. That's for sure.
You got to learn how to take a punch.
Yeah.
And for those of you who want to write, who might be listening still, get used to it. Just get out there. It gets easier. You get tougher. Lots of the feedback that you get helps you to be better. Just get used to it.
Nice. Any final words for our listeners? Any final little tidbits? Anything you want them to know before we leave?
Okay, so buy my book. I've got a bunch of them out here you could choose from. Go out.
Newest one, Toll the Magi.
Toll of the Magi is the most current one. In June, I will release Only Death Lies That Way. These are all stories from the Temra. They introduce characters that are a part of the big story. They are all standalone. You can read any one in any order. I hope they're entertaining. They're a central theme of the truth is the central theme of everything I write is about family loyalty. Not always good people. A lot of the people I have that are very loyal are awful people. They're loyal to their families, not yours. But there's a theme of what parents will do for their children, and what it is to be out there in the world. I think that I tell stories that are entertaining, and hopefully you enjoy reading them too. And the longer works are coming. I've got the one novel out right now, which that one will be a trilogy. I've got all the bits for the rest of it. Still totally going to pants it, but I kind of have a gist of where it's going, which is all I need. And then we've got all the novels that'll go into Near Earth. There's lots of depth to plumb out there. I will give you as many stories as you will read. So please pick one up. For anybody who reads my stories, leave a review. It can be a star review. It can be a 1-star or a 5-star. I am not going to be insulted. I will be hurt. I will cry. I will curl up on myself and say, nobody loves me. But if a 1 is what you want to do, put a 1 out there. And if a 5 is what's going to be out there, I really appreciate that. If I inspire you enough to put down some words, please do that too. But read my books. And I do everything in audio too, because I personally listen to a lot of audiobooks. The piece on that. So for you, Senna, who's a writer, and for you guys, it may affect you. I read more through audiobooks than I do in print because I can read only so much while I'm writing. If I'm writing, when I read somebody else's word, it's using the same bit of my brain. And if I'm reading it on a page, it affects my ability to write.
Fair.
But I can listen to anything I want as much as I want, and it doesn't affect my ability to write at all. So I do a lot of audiobooks because that doesn't affect my pace. of writing. And movies are good too. That, you know, auditory and visual don't affect my ability to write a story. So some things I read, I do read every day by, you know, like regular reading, but I also listen to books. I exercise. I go for a walk every night for probably an hour and a half or 2 hours, and I listen to a book the whole time. So everything I do is on audiobook. If you want to listen to that, it is my voice. You gotta. I don't know about the rest of you, but audiobooks are hugely expensive to produce. And the more I do them, the better I get at it. I hope they're good enough for you, but they'll get better, I promise. And if enough of you listen to them and buy them, maybe I'll hire people to do the work for me so that they're better. But at least you know everything is pronounced correctly.
Yeah.
If you're listening to me doing it, because that is my voice telling those stories. I will add to that. Tim McKay is a fine author. Part of what he's doing here is to get his name out, buy his books. Selvendra is a great place to be. There's a lot of interesting stuff to see there. Buy his books. Listen to his books. He's got some audio out there too.
On the way. Audio on the way.
On the way. I thought you already had. Whatever.
So I've recorded it.
I was lying on his behalf. Isaac also has some good stuff out there. Song of Bones is a really good story. I would put it, because it is anamorphic, it's kind of middle grade, but I really put it a little older than middle grade in terms of themes. Mm-hmm. Very well written, super interesting. He did the Garden Maze, which is a good story, did well out there in Sphinx. So my hosts are both talented artists, and you should take advantage of what they put in front of you. Buy their books too. And as my host, buy their books first. But
no, you're the guest. Buy EL's books first.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. If you have Kindle Unlimited, I do everything on Kindle Unlimited precisely because if you just have the little subscription, you can get everything I want. And if you get the audiobook, you can also do Kindle Unlimited and do them together. I know some people like to do it that way.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to, I'm not going to become a millionaire writing books. At least not in the midterm. I would love it. Seriously, tell a friend, tell another friend. It only takes 100 generations and I'm a billionaire. But, what I would really like to do, and I hope that we all get a chance to do something like that. I want 10,000 diehard fans. When you think of 8 billion people, 10,000 is nothing.
Yeah.
Even if you only think of the 500 million English speakers, 10,000 is nothing. It's a drop in the bucket. It's a whisper. Yeah. I just have to find those 10,000. And if I can write at the pace that I write, and every time I write, 10,000 people want it, I'm all right.
Yeah.
There you go.
So if you like it and you think somebody else would like the kind of thing that you like, point them at it, point out that it's easy to get a hold of. Reach out to me, ask any questions. I'm super easy. You can tell I'm talkative. Hit me up on X. Montague is right there. I'll do it. I'll get more social presence at some point, but it's only so much I can manage. So There you go. Buy my book, buy Tim's book, buy Isaac's book. Gentlemen, thank you for hosting me. I know that I took a full 2 hours of your time. I hope that wasn't too much.
No problem.
You're not even close to the longest we've had, so don't you worry about it.
Awesome. Hold up your book. Your book is right there. I held up mine. Take your book, hold it up for the screen so people can see it. The Fall of Selvendra. Song of Bones is on the wall, full size. It's been in your eyes the whole time. So get those books. Guys?
Well, thank you so much for being on. And thanks everyone who joined in the chat. If you want to check out these great Audible books, I've heard samples. I've listened to a few chapters from one. I can tell you it's a lot of fun, and EL has a great voice for it. So check out, there's a link to all his Audible books there. There's a link to his Amazon profile, author profile, to find all his books on Amazon. You can, like EL said, follow him on X, and you know where to follow us. So be sure to subscribe and like and all that good stuff. And we will see you again next time. I believe our next is it's coming up to 22nd. So we'll be back
Nathan
again
J.
very
Pierce.
soon. Yeah. So we will be back again very soon. And thank you all for being around tonight. Cheers again to EL. And now we will do that